Hello everyone, how are you feeling? That's my question for you. So, my answer for myself is as follows. Been through a really turbulent time, and if you look into astrology and what's going on in the bigger picture out there in the cosmos, you'll find that pretty much anyone who's got an awareness of that will tell you the same thing. Very turbulent times, very challenging solar flares, eclipses, powerful moons, powerful astrological aspects. Really challenging time to be alive, things coming up. So I've been through a really rough time, and I'm going through a really rough time still. And it's got a lot to do with someone close in my life, and that's my mother. So my mum's been through a really tough time lately, and she's actually has shingles. And shingles is one of those peculiar illnesses we don't tend to know much about unless we know someone close to us has got it. So it's the same organism that causes chickenpox, the varicella virus, and it's a really strange one because what it does when a person gets shingles, if you're a child you get chickenpox, if you're an adult in later life you're more likely to get shingles. So this is what she's got, and it causes a great deal of pain in the nerve endings, particularly the skin, and she's got an incredibly hideous skin condition. The skin looks very, very painful, particularly the thighs and the lower back. So I've been going down quite a lot to Devon in the recent times. I've only just come back from a trip a week ago. I'll be going back down in a few days' time. And I'm being confronted by something that we mostly like to forget about and ignore. So that's what this film is about. This is a film is all about something that we'd all like to ignore and have not look at all. So if you just like to keep life simple and you don't want to look anything difficult, you might want to switch off, because I'm going to share something which is very difficult, very challenging, and it affects every single one of us that live in the so-called developed world. If you live in a more traditional society, this won't apply to you, because you'll have that wonderful support network known as the extended family and the location that you live. So I'm going to reveal quite a lot about myself in this film, because that's going to help to explain what the issue is. So I live in the northwest of England, and my family is scattered to the four winds pretty much. Actually at the moment it's not so bad because we're all in the same country. There have been times we've been literally scattered around the world, but at the moment we're located in this country. So I have a sister living in South Devon. My mother lives in South Devon. I have a niece living in a different part of South Devon. My daughter lives in Somerset. My son lives in Yorkshire, and my brother lives in Sussex, Brighton. So pretty well scattered. Now my mother's reached the point that she's past the 89 mark and she's approaching 90 early next year. And she comes from a generation, very interesting generation, my mother's generation, because they come from what we call the modernists. The modernist generation overthrew everything that went before it, because before that we had what we call traditional society, people living in the same town or village, the family living in the same area, all the friends in the same area, and that got broken down. And my parents' generation is where that began. So they chose to do this thing which we call bettering themselves. It's a funny expression, isn't it? They wanted to create a better life for themselves. They wanted to improve their situation. Both working class, both struggling to survive. Father looking forward to the prospect of doing a really damaging job in a steel foundry, which would have caused him to have an early death. He took one look at that and thought, that's no good. So what happened is they chose to move to a different part of the country, and that meant they left all their extended family, all their friends, all their relatives, all the support. They left it all behind, and they chose to live in a totally different part of the country where they didn't know anyone. So what's happened is I'm one of 4 children. I was brought up like that. So my childhood was moving different places. So I don't have the connection that people live in a traditional society have. I simply haven't got that. There are people, and I know them. Sorry about the voice, bit of an issue this. Talking about things which is not easy. So I don't have the connection with my ancestral lands. I don't have the connection with my ancestors that people used to have, and people still have today in more traditional countries. So that's the background. So let's go right up to the now. The now is, my mum has been deteriorating, especially since last year. Last year she had a rather nasty accident. She was crossing a road with my brother at the time, and she fell and she broke her kneecap and her wrist, and she had many months of pain. 3 hospitals she was in until she finally got back home, and it's been a difficult time for her, and so all the family have been doing what they can to help, visiting more often. Now, this physical trauma and the severe pain that she's experienced for many months has had its effects in other ways. So what's happening is that she's losing her memory, and she's losing her connection to linear time. And this is where it gets really interesting, because when people go and experience a retreat with the plant medicines, they are actually intending for certain experiences to happen. And there's actually a really big similarity between having a plant medicine retreat and being my mum at the age that she is. So when we take plant medicines, our conventional sense of linear time goes out of the window. The memories of things that would normally concern and interest us disappear, and we are in a different state, and that's a really great thing to experience for a short time. But for longer term, this causes a whole bunch of problems. So the fact that my mum has a poor memory which is deteriorating, it means she forgets which day it is, and if she has pills to take and she's got the shingles, so she's got drugs to take at the moment, that's an issue, because if she takes the pills too often, she could have an overdose. If she doesn't take them often enough, she's in unspeakable agony. Well, in fact, she's been in unspeakable agony anyway. So I'm going to go back to last week. So I went down last week to be with her and support her in whatever way I could. And I found myself in a situation where something had already been set up, so I followed it. Been set up by the doctor. So she was on 3 drugs: codeine, paracetamol, and something called gabapentin. Now, gabapentin is a neuropathic pain reliever. So if you can imagine, basically the shingles, the virus attacks the peripheral nervous system, so the nerve endings get attacked, and so she's been in constant agonizing pain. It's beyond severe. So when I got down there, what I witnessed is this. There she is, she's crying out in agony every few seconds, and she's on codeine, addictive painkiller, paracetamol, a very damaging painkiller which damages liver, kidneys, various other organs. Most people forget that, but it's still the case. And gabapentin, which is what I would, with hindsight, now call a nasty, dirty drug. So there I am. I'm a person who is a stand for people not taking pharmaceutical drugs, and yet there is my mum, and she's in such agony with these drugs, actually taking these drugs, that I'm not in a position where I can say, oh, mum, you don't want to take the drugs, because actually every few seconds she's crying out in pain, and some of the time she's actually crying as well as crying out. It is one of the most distressing experiences I've had for a very long time. I've had loads of experiences in my life, many of them are distressing, but this one's right up in the top 5, I'd say. Awful experience. And then the skin on the inside of her thighs, and it's been that bad, and I've been taught so many things. So when a person gets into really acute illness and the pain is agonizing or worse, then everything outside themselves gets blocked off, and all she was able to do was be completely fully present to the present moment, which was utter agony. constant. So that's what it was like. And so for the first 24 hours, that's what I did. I became the de facto nurse, and I administered the drugs on the schedule which was written down for me. And you can imagine what I thought about this. Oh, this is shit. Okay, so my mother's going through unspeakable agonizing pain, and I'm giving her toxic drugs. This is shit, and this is more shit. So the following day I go to the health food shop, obviously, and I find they've got a new variety of CBD oil, which rather than being a dropper, it's a little sprayer, so you just give one squirt, and that's like a measured dose. So I thought, right, I'm going to get you that for a start. Cannabinidol, that is, from the cannabis plant. So now, bearing in mind that my mum has a history of being rather violently opposed to cannabis in any form whatsoever, including CBD oil. She's been given it before, offered it before, and has never liked it, hated the taste, and just total rejection. But things are that serious. And also St. John's wort oil, which is a wonderful healing oil to put on the skin. She was prescribed some chemicalized crap, let me put it bluntly, cream, which wouldn't have done any good whatsoever. So I went and got the St. John's wort oil. That's actually antiviral. I got the amino acid L-lysine, that's antiviral. And of course, one of the things that's going to be an issue, she's not eating enough. What about the important oils, all the omega-3, 6 and 9? So right, let's get her what was called an Udo oil. It's in a capsule and gives her a good balance of those. And then the other thing is vitamin C. Well, I took down my personal favourite, which is a cat's claw, and the vitamin C powder, which is basically the rose hips, which I harvest and grind up into a powder. Let's do all that. Great. That was too much for her. She couldn't cope with that. So back to the health food shop, and I got her the best quality vitamin C pills that I could do, one that dissolves in water, because you can't swallow the large pills. They just won't go down. She just spits them out. So give them a powerful vitamin C drink. So that will all help. And so for the days that I continued to be down there, that's what I was doing. So I gave her the pharmaceutical poison, and I gave her the healthy things, which is going to help to build her up at the same time. And I want to really sing the praises of the CBD oil, because to me this is a CBD oil in the worst possible format. Worst possible format is taking it along with pharmaceutical drugs. The best thing would be to have it on its own. The degree of agony she's in is far too severe for me to even contemplate that action. And this is something, and it's like a harrowing thing, and it made me feel totally grossed out. But what she would do is constantly she would pull up her clothes and she would show me how hideous the skin was on her legs. Really traumatizing to experience that, because it was the most vivid example of just how dreadful her condition was. So I'm living a nightmare of hell with my mother in this situation. That's what's going on. And then I'm doing the best with the food. So she's got a juicer, so I'm making her juices every day. I'm making a food which she can eat, and making sure it's as healthy and nutritious as possible. And when I arrived, she wasn't really eating properly, but within 24 hours she's having like 3 meals a day. She doesn't eat all of anything I'm offering her, but she's eating some of it, sometimes half, sometimes a bit more than half, so that's all really good as well. And she starts off a bit dodgy with some of these alternative things I'm giving her, but gradually starts to improve. And by the time it was time for me to go back to my life up in the northwest of England, she was actually doing quite well in terms of taking things in that were good for her and keeping on with the CBD and the pharma drugs. And it actually got to the point by the time I left that she was not literally crying out in pain every few seconds. That had improved to the point that, so this is the thing about the CBD, and I want to acknowledge I'm having massive difficulty making this one. It's very hard for me to concentrate because of all the emotions that I'm going through as I'm being an empath, constantly aware of my mother's state, which is deplorable. So please bear with me on this. So the CBD, what it did is I could detect this very quickly. When she sleeps in a drugged state, I can feel that discomfort and that malaise I'm picking up empathically. But when she took the CBD oil, I had just a total break. I felt absolutely fine for 2 or 3 hours, however long it lasted for. So she'd take the CBD oil, just the one squirt, and then 20 to 30 minutes later she'd be out sleeping. And then when she got up, some 2 or 3 hours later, she didn't come and find where I was, didn't whimper or make any sounds of pain, but actually just got on and started doing practical jobs in the flat, folding up, washing and sorting out plates and things. I was absolutely flabbergasted. So even in the worst circumstances, when you're medicating with pharma drugs, CBD still makes an appreciable difference to a person. It's really helpful to know that, isn't it? So this is what I'm leading up to. I'm leading up to end of life. I'm leading up to the fact that 89 to 90, that's what we're talking about. That's how long she's been alive for. And the question is she going to survive the shingles? Is she going to survive this gradual deterioration in her faculties? And of course no one knows, because life's a mystery. That's what we all are dealing with all the time. Every moment of our existence is a mystery, isn't it? So we simply don't know. So it was a very hard and harsh choice that ended up being made, because I had to go back to do what I needed to do up here. And I didn't feel right about leaving her. And my niece came down, but she's got 2 young children. My other niece, she's got a young child. My daughter, she's got a full-time study, and as well as that, she's actually having to work in nursing to earn money, as well as training as a nurse. My other sister is, for the first time in a long time, she's got a full-time job, and both the children have just grown up to the point they've got full-time jobs. They've just moved. It's more than they can cope with. And so this terribly difficult decision was made. So my niece was there when I left, and then something happened, and this is even more distressing, which is the second night that my niece was staying with her, about 11 o'clock at night. She got dressed, packed a case, walked out the door of the flat, down the stairs, and was walking off. And luckily my niece, she was in bed, all tucked up in bed. She heard the door slam, thought, what the hell's going on, got herself a dressing gown on, rushed out of the flat and saw my mum moving quite quickly down the path, going goodness knows where, and still in unspeakable agony. So she managed to stop her, have a conversation. She was trying to escape. She couldn't bear the thought of having to go into a home, a residential care home, even temporarily. So you can imagine how horrific that was. What's worse is her sister ended up in a home, and her sister did escape repeatedly and was found by the police different times. So I'm leading you to the thing that you don't want to face up to. How do you feel about when it gets to the point that you're approaching end of life and you can't remember things, and your connection with linear time is going, and you've got problems with this and problems with that? How are you going to cope when someone makes a decision and says, right, that's it, you're in a home now, and you have to let go of your independence, let go of where you love to be, and find yourself bunged in with a load of other people of advanced age with similar awful disabling symptoms? How would you feel? Do you want that for yourself? You don't, do you? Neither do I. And yet I'm in the experience of having to face up to this happening with my mother. What a piece of shit, isn't it? And that's all going on while everything's kicking off with the planets and the moon and the solar flares and all the rest of it, which is causing us all to feel really weird. And then I came across this, so I'm going to read this to you. So one of the reasons I love Facebook is because every now and again you'll get something that will speak to you. So this is what I got about my mother. Pain travels through family lines until someone is ready to heal it in themselves. Pain travels through family lines until someone is ready to heal it in themselves. By going through the agony of healing, you no longer pass the poison chalice onto the generations that follow. It is incredibly important and sacred work. can you imagine how I felt at that moment? It was like after days and days and days of feeling all my mother's agony, because that's what empaths do. They feel it all, don't they? Still feeling it now. Of course I am. She's still in the home. That hasn't changed. And then I read this. Pain travels through family lines until someone is ready to heal it in themselves. By going through the agony of healing, you no longer pass the poisoned chalice onto the generations that follow. It is incredibly important and sacred work. Thank you, Jasmine Sereneri, one of my Facebook friends, a person I've never met face to face, who put that up as a post. Really speaks to me, that. So I can now reframe my mother's experience and actually understand that what she's doing is she's not just like an old person thrown on a scrap heap, useless. That poor generation, just really look at that generation that came in, the one that broke away from the extended family and traditional society, and they created this modernist lifestyle. They created the nuclear family. The nuclear family, of course, is radioactive and it decays. And that's what I was born into. I was born into a nuclear family, which has very much decayed. Lots of schisms, lots of challenges, lots of people not speaking to each other, lots of shit, basically, in our family. Because, of course, that's what happened, yeah? So that generation, they lost the connection with their ancestors. And now they're at the point in their lives when they're elders. And what the younger generation, what all the rest of us have done, put them in a home, ignore them. That's normal, isn't it? No, it's not. It's totally abnormal. It's aberrant. And it's just totally weird, but that's actually what's going on. So this is what I'm faced with. So I am faced with all this. And I have the most wonderful partner. She comes from a different part of the world. She comes from the Canary Islands, much more of a traditional society. She wasn't brought up in a nuclear family like I was, so a different sense of things. And so she's been suggesting that we bring her and let her live with us here. That means I won't be able to offer any retreats or events to people here. Too bad. So we're looking at that possibility. However, I know that my mum loves to live where she does in South Devon. Is she even going to want to move up here? Will she be persuaded? I don't know. But we've got a WhatsApp group in the family and we share information, and I just read one this morning from one of my nieces, and it emphasised this point over and over again. It's so easy when I say you can't remember things and sense of linear time is gone. What does that mean? I'll tell you what it means in practice. It means that if someone goes and visits her, half an hour later she can't remember. And so if you don't visit her for 2 or 3 days, it feels like oceans of time have gone by, that she's been abandoned. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at, do we bring her up here and let her live with us? Invite her into our home? My partner's got a job. The other option we're looking at is, do we move down to South Devon and squeeze into her flat and have her living with us there? And my partner would have to lose her job and let go of that, and that would cause considerable inconvenience for the people she works for. Well, I'm in the realms of mystery here. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just sharing with you so you've got an idea what's going on. So I've been just completely all over the place. And something that's helped me enormously is I've become microdosing with the little mushrooms. And the first day I did the microdose, I was still feeling absolutely dreadful, awful. And the microdose is 0.1 of a gram every other day. So day 2 I didn't have any, felt a lot better. Day 3 I had the dose, better. So I've been doing a lot better since. But you can tell to look at me. I know I look haggard, I look depleted. That's because this is really taking it out of me, this whole experience. So I'm going to leave you with this, which is the mushrooms. So then, after having done that for 5 days, I then went for a full experience. I was just a few days ago with this full experience, and I got connected with my mushroom card. So the spirit of the mushrooms gave me all this information when I was 25, And I sat down and meticulously wrote it all out, and I've lived in so many places and so many countries ever since. It's one of the very few things I have from when I was that age. And this is the one I want to pick up because it's about the earth. And it's talking about having respect for the earth. And this is what it says. Tend the earth with pride, with respect, with admiration, and with a little wonder. So I'm going to leave that with you. So whatever connection you have to the earth, whether you have a garden or a window box, or you go out into nature and have a walk, just the fact that you give attention to nature is wonderful. It's what my mother wants more than anything else, is attention. We'll work it out somehow. So I'm going to leave you in the realms of mystery. I'll let you know how things go. Thank you very much.